Hello, my name is Yvette, and always lovely to get to Friday report out and to hear about the great work that our improvement teams have been doing. It's particularly great when we've got an RPIW week ongoing, or has happened, and so we're really delighted to hear from adult cardiac team. Simon is the executive sponsor for the value stream, and he's here as well. And we've got lots of people here to hear you. So I hope you've had a good week. We're really looking forward to hearing about acute referrals. Amy, you've been the workshop lead. Team lead, sorry. And we've got the team members here. Jimmy, you've been workshop lead. Thank you, from the KPO team. We've got Mr. Cole Pankash, and we've got Sophia, Charlie, and Joe. Is that right?
Amy.
And Amy. Sorry, Amy. Amy, you're process owner. You're very important. Thank you very much. So please come up and let's hear your report.
I thought we'd start with a phrase, a quote that Amy brought into the week. So, hello, my name's Jimmy. I'm the KPO specialist and workshop lead for this workshop. And this landed with us ahead of our work this week. Just something just to digest. How often is this the case? And I think this team have done a superb job of addressing that human basic challenge this week. So this is our project form. So referring patients for a decision regarding cardiac surgery involves several different teams and often external partners. 40% of our patients in our sample ahead of the event are from external partners. So the connection of these teams is the patient for whom they want to provide the best possible care. Our observations preparing for the event reveal various wastes, often connected with the flow of information, and that information is safe and timely decisions. It's essential to make sure they happen. So what's the consequence of this waste? Well, it's frustration for the teams involved. It's rework, so they're spending their time doing things that have been done once already. And that's already on top of a pressurised burden of work for many of them in these processes. Importantly, as is so often the case with a set-up process of which referrals are, we've got acutely unwell patients who are waiting, uncertain, anxious, for news about a life-changing decision. So hopefully you can see why our work this week was important.
Hello, my name's Amy Dunmore. I'm Kaizen Promotion Office Specialist, and I was the team leader in this RPIW. The targets for improvement for this RPIW you can see here on the slide. So the lead time prior to the event was 63 hours. The working process 2, the standard working process 17. The quality measure, patient satisfaction, you can see here was 50% defective. The quality measure, so referrals were 40% defective. And the quality measure around the ease of use for the referral form was 71% defective. And the 5S measure was at level 1. I'll also let you know about the TAC time, so which the TAC time is the pace of work to meet demand. For this referral process, it's 225 minutes, 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Hello, my name is Pankaj Kaul. I'm a cardiac surgeon and I'm a member of this RPIW. This RPI focused on an important, I think, critical segment of the patient's wider journey, and that is the time when a cardiologist referred an acute patient for acute cardiac surgery till the time that a surgical decision was made by the cardiac surgeon regarding surgery. Most of the times it's yes, but sometimes no. So 6 weeks of data collection before this RPIW showed that there were a number of defects in this process. And one of the commonest defects was as many as 40% of the acute cardiac surgical referral forms were either incomplete or did not have sufficient data on the basis of which cardiac surgeons could not make a decision. Also, particularly from peripheral hospitals, the most important cardiac angiographic films and echocardiographic films did not arrive in time for the surgeons to make a decision. So both of these things led to a delay in the cardiac surgical decision making, and that led to delay in communication to both the cardiologists, particularly in the peripheral hospitals, and to the patients, which of course increased not only the anxiety of cardiologists, but particularly of the patients. So what did we do? We brought together all the stakeholders in this process. We brought the cardiac surgeons, cardiologists, administration staff, the specialists from the RPIW, the lay observers, and most importantly, the process owner here, Amy, who's the scheduler of this. And there were a number of long and intense interactive discussions, and we tested many of the theoretical concepts by actually going to the shop floor. And what we wanted to understand was, why is it that the referrers, particularly, and referrers usually are the foundation doctors, cardiology foundation, why is it that they find it difficult to fill the forms? And we also want to understand why was there a delay in surgical decision making. The most common reason for the foundation doctors to fill the form was that they did not always understand what was important and what was not important. It was not just a question of filling in the tick boxes. They always did not understand, why is it that a person who needs cardiac surgery, cardiac surgeons need so much information about other things. There was some degree of failure to understand that comorbidities of various systems do impact on decision making. And as far as the cardiac surgeons themselves were concerned, one of the commonest reasons for not taking a decision was because either there was not sufficient information available to them, or the films had not arrived yet, particularly from the peripheral hospitals. So what have we done? What we've done is we've devised a new version of the referral form, but more importantly, we have appended a new set of instructions with this referral form, which explains why exactly what investigations are required and why are they important, and what not to do for the form to be rejected. And in addition to that, we also strengthened the procedure for transfer of films from peripheral hospitals to LGI. And we hope that in addition to these two things, we also tasked the cardiac surgeons, that we got agreement from majority of cardiac surgeons to access the email inbox after hours, after Amy has left, so that for that little segment of time, 2 or 3 hours after she's left, we still access those forms and take the decision about surgery, and leave that decision for Amy to collect in the morning so that she can process it immediately. And in addition to that, we also task Amy to inform the cardiologists and the patients usually immediately after a decision for cardiac surgery is taken. If the patient is already in LGI, then Amy has kindly agreed to go across to the patient, speak to the patient, inform the patient of decision, and also to provide an information booklet which gives fair amount of information about cardiac surgery, the cardiac diseases and cardiac surgical operations, and also invite them to write down any questions they might have of the cardiac surgeons when they go and see them, and make a written note of that. We hope some of these measures will go some way in reducing the cardiac waiting time, but we're going to test this in future. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy. I'm the cardiac scheduler and the process owner for this RPW. Before we began this process, 40% of referrals coming into department were defective, with missing information, incomplete investigations, or images not being available to view. I would spend a lot of time chasing further information before being able to pass the referral on to the surgeon on call, which would result in a delay for the patients having that initial decision for surgery. We've had a lot of input from various members of the department to make the form more user-friendly, but keeping all essential information needed to make the decision for surgery. Also, adding a guide to completing the referral will hopefully provide that extra information to aid each referrer. We've also added a section at the bottom of each referral for the surgeon to instruct the scheduler with the next steps, if there is not an opportunity to discuss that in person. The surgeon will then leave the referral in a designated tray in their office for the scheduler to collect. This will result in a speedier decision being communicated to the patient and the referrer.
Hello, my name is Joe. My experience is that I've worked as a foundation doctor in the cardiac surgery department. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we tested our new form during the week and the team agreement that we came to at the end, which we'll talk about. So personally, I possess a bit of an interest in public health as a long-term career goal, and having gone through medical school, it's drilled into you the importance of having really robust and rigorous research methodology. And so naturally, I found the whole PDSA method a little bit crude to start with small sample sizes, and I felt it was going to be a bit difficult to find any kind of solid conclusions from the work, but I can safely say now I'm a bit of a convert to it all. As the week went on, I really started to appreciate the value of the PDSA, so found that it was an effective method of quickly testing the small changes made to our referral form and gaining prompt feedback from the different referrers on the ward. In fact, in the space of just 3 days, we ended up testing 7 different versions of the form, which were gradually kind of I suppose evolving into the final form, and we were able to gain quick feedback from a variety of different referrers on the shop floor, so to speak. And I can appreciate now that it wouldn't have been possible to do that without if we'd used kind of more traditional research methods. I feel it's also really useful constantly going back to the place of work and challenging the assumptions that we made as a group of stakeholders away from the place of work. With the people who matter, the people filling in the form, with all the competing interests they have on, in their place of work, and the feedback we received on the final form was really encouraging, actually. And then, additionally, through formulating the changes around the table, all the different backgrounds we had cardiologists, cardiac surgeons, etc. And going out to see those actually using the form at the place of work, and then contacting the peripheral hospitals. I feel we were better able to understand the scope that was present for defects in filling out the form, and also the referral process as a whole. So most importantly, perhaps, I think now after this week, we're better able to understand the different lines of communication between the different stakeholders, both in Leeds and in the peripheral hospitals, and also how they can be effective, but also how the referral process makes each stakeholder feel and their perception of their own roles and their expectations of other stakeholders in the process. Using this insight we gained, I was to create a team agreement, which we've got up here, which clearly outlines responsibilities of each stakeholder in the referral process at each stage. And it's hoped that this will help drive down the waiting times between the referral being sent and the cardiac surgeon being in a position where they have that tool in front of them where they can make a decision on whether that patient needs cardiac surgery. And we've done that by improving the communication lines and decreasing the scope for effective referral forms.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Charlie, Service Improvement Project Manager from NHS Improvement, and I've joined the RPIW team this week with Outside Eyes. Before the week began, the team looked at how the acute cardiac referral process impacted on patients and their experience at Leeds teaching. Feedback suggested that patients felt uneasy and often apprehensive whilst waiting to hear the outcome of a decision regarding their surgery. One patient commented, "I felt anxious and wasn't sure how long I would be waiting." Further patient feedback indicated that 50% of patients were not satisfied with the time they'd waited for a primary decision regarding their surgery. With an aim to reduce this wait time for patients, it has been agreed that a new approach to patient communication will be introduced. Amy, or the scheduler on shift, will now communicate the outcome decision, if it's a yes, directly to the patient as soon as the decision has been made. If the outcome is a no, this will be communicated by the relevant surgeon. To ensure patients receive consistent information, Amy will deliver the Your Journey Through Heart Surgery booklet to the patient, which we discovered they don't usually receive prior to their surgery. Amy will then signpost them to the back of the booklet where we will introduce a page for patients to make a note of any questions they may have for their surgeon in the lead up to their surgery. Amy and I ran this idea past a couple of patients yesterday, and both that we spoke to felt this was a highly useful resource, and both commented that they would use this page to note down their concerns or any questions they might have. Both of these changes aim to improve patient communication and therefore enables the best patient care.
So I have the job of introducing the target progress report after, but I wanted to show you this first. So what we've been able to do during the week is focus on the weight state. So you can see on the value stream map for the first weight state, what we've aimed to do is reduce that first 14-hour weight state for the referral being opened. And then the other 2 weight states in the middle, by reducing or removing the defects, that stops the weight state at the second point. And then by introducing the surgeons being able to check the inbox out of hours, we think we will reduce or eliminate that second weight there. And we're really, really confident, so although we've not been able to test the lead time because we haven't had any real patients to do that with now, we're really confident that this will be borne out in the 30 days remeasures. So as I said, we weren't able to test on real patients, but we have been able to do some simulated tests on the new form, on the guidance, on the patient information and communication. And the main targets that we were able to test were on the quality measures. So the referral defects rates, initially you can see from this, actually we did increase our defect rate, and what we've been able to do through the 7 iterations of the form is now reduce that. And that will be tested further over the next 30 days. The quality measure on ease of referral, I'm pleased to say we reduced from initially 71% defects to 33%, which is actually a 54% change. And we really look forward to seeing that further reduction over the next 30 days. The 5S level remains at 1, however, there's been significant progress towards reaching level 2. Importantly, the patient satisfaction, although not measured, as you've heard from Charlie, the feedback on the new booklet was very positive, and again we'll look forward to measuring the impact of that on the patient satisfaction at 30 days.
This is the newspaper, which is a list of actions that we're going to complete over the next 30 days, which we look forward to telling you about at the next report out.
So it leaves me to summarise key learning. There's something on screen there which I think has resonated for us as a group this week, and hopefully you can all take a little bit away. We've talked about induction. How do we support the people coming in and out of our areas, particularly the junior doctors completing these referrals, to get it right first time? We've heard some great work on that, and one of the newspaper items is about induction, and if it happens, how does it happen and where do they find this information? But I was thinking as well about how often do we go up and downstream of the process that we're part of to see what impact it has on what's sent to us and what we send on, because we're often part of a pathway. And there's no doubt that seeing how people work, they do their best, but so frequently they do their best in their space and they might not be really clear on what other people are doing very close to them for the same patient but in a slightly different space. So small changes, big impact, co-designed is the key learning from this week. So thank yous. We've got team members who've contributed hugely who aren't here. So Angie, Jenny and Sophia aren't here. There's lots of people, as you've heard, that have contributed to our testing. I think the team have underplayed just how much time they've spent out there checking in with colleagues, coming back, changing, going back, checking. You know, I think they've undersold it. They've done a huge amount of work. And Amy and I wrestled with the TPR. The numbers aren't great. They don't reflect the work that's been done. Also Joe underplayed the fact that he's been on the phone to all our external partners who we know refer in. What do you think? How can we help you? You didn't sell it enough, so huge amount of work there. That's why I go last. So Sophia did leave us with a comment as well. She texted in, she can't be here, she's with patients doing important work. Her phrase is there. I've learned a lot from the process. The biggest improvement for me is the collaboration and agreed communication between the teams to improve the patient experience. That's our report out, thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. That was brilliant. And actually, I'm really glad, Jimmy, that you clarified at the end, because I was sitting there thinking, so actually, have you managed to talk to the DGHs? And that's fantastic that you've managed to do that. So Joe, Charlie, Amy, Pankaj, Amy, and of course Jimmy, thank you very much indeed. We're going to hear now from A&E at the LGI. They've got a 90-day report out, and I think Anthony is here to do that. I don't see Anna with you, so I'm guessing that you're doing that on your own, Anthony. So.
Thank you.
Right.
Hello, my name is Anthony Warren. I'm the process owner for the RPIW1 for the ED value stream, and this is our 90-day report out. So just a quick recap for those that aren't aware. So for the first value stream, we were looking at the patients booking in at reception, and we split it into two parts. So the part where they go see reception first and booking onto the system, and then the second part, which is what we looked into more detail, were around the streaming, and once they've been booked in, getting the patient to the right area within ED so that they can get the right care that they need. So we first looked at our lead time. So our lead time baseline was 96 seconds, and what we decided is that our target, we were going to keep it the same, because what we wanted to do is look at, can we add value to the patient's journey at that point in reception. Once they're booked in, are we getting it right first time, and are the patients getting the treatment that they need? At our 90-day remeasure, we have significantly improved that, but that was just a consequence of some of the work that's been undertaken. So our work in progress, our baseline, we had 6 patients waiting to book in, and when we've remeasured throughout, we've always had 0 patients waiting to book in at reception. But we do have a lessons learned here, which is if we want to repeat this, I think we would need to choose a different day and a different time, because just how the first week fell, it went on a Wednesday afternoon, which is one of our least periods of activity. In the next slides, I'll talk you through some of the quality defects that we were looking at. So the first one was around wayfinding, and it was about patients being able to easily identify the next part of their journey. So before, we did have some signage in the reception, but there was a lot of different signs. Patients struggled to read them. And it were verbal instructions, which to get around to the main area was go out of the doors, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. And as you can imagine, patients would get to the first set of doors and then they were looking to see, well, where do I go? So what we've done is we've painted the doors blue and red so that we can say to the patients, follow the blue signs or follow the red signs, and that gets the patients to where they need to go. That also helps with our timings, because it's easier to give those instructions to patients, follow the blue signs, and you don't have to repeat that. And we've had feedback from the staff that they have had less patients asking, where do I go next? And we found less patients in the corridor lost. The next key improvement was about our paediatric cross-site transfer. So I've had a look this morning, and we've had 944 paediatric patients attend St James's since we introduced the new SOP. So previously, patients, if they attended St James's, would be seen by a clinician at St James's and then transferred to LGI. But the was required to go back into reception and book back in. And we've created a new SOP where once the patient's transferred, they can go straight into the paediatrics department, and they don't need to go back into reception. So that's nearly 1,000 patients that has been taken out of reception in the last 6 months. The returns clinics, so through PDSA cycles, we originally looked at, can we support reception by removing the YAS activity and booking ambulances in central area. But due to different schemes that were going on within the department, we focused on the ED returns clinics. They've now been taken out of the footprint so we can use that space, and they're being provided in outpatients clinics. The next part would be to see whether or not we can recover that reception workforce so that we can continue the work with the YAS to see if we can book ambulances in central area to take more activity out of reception. I've just put on there business as usual, so we're 90 days into this, a bit longer than 90 days, but all the staff now are just, this is part of the daily work, and we're continuing to PDSA it, so even though the RPIW week's finished, we're still looking at ways, so we're seeing more days of 400 attendances, which has significant pressures on reception. Only on Monday we had, in a 3-hour period, more than 100 patients booking, and that created delays and queues. So we've now introduced some action cards of what can we do. So once there's 5 patients waiting, what actions do we need to do to reduce the queue? So we'll continue to work through them, and we'll report back to VSST how that works continuing. So for our newspaper, as I've previously mentioned, so we still need to look at the as booking in. Anna previously gave a really good example of a story where a relative accompanied a patient who were really upset, and it was much better patient experience by booking them in central area, not asking the patient to come with me and take them round to reception where other people can hear that conversation. So we really do want to go back to that and revisit that and see if we can put some additional resource into central area to deliver that piece of work. We still have the questions, so it is 40 questions to book a patient in. We've been through them and reviewed them all, and it is part of the emergency care data set. But what we want to do a value-added test now. So we want to say, does it add value to the patient's journey at this point? And if it doesn't, then we will feed those questions back to say, well, what can we do to remove them from the emergency care data set, because it's not adding value to the patient's journey. During the RPIW week, we came up with a definition for streaming, which was it's a clinical assessment to direct the patient to the most appropriate area of care. And what we've decided now, following the RPIW week, is actually it's not a clinical assessment, it's just a quick review with the patient. So we need to go back and review our statement that we said streaming is, because we want, by the end of the week, we don't feel that it is an appropriate definition now. And then the last part of that is our paediatric transfers. Nearly 1,000 patients in 6 months is a lot of patients who are attending St James's and delaying their treatment and care. And we've prepared some material to go on social media, a video, and also a press release to advertise that the paediatrics ED is at LGI for the community. So the barriers and key learnings, the main key learnings from the team were that we had really good collaboration across MDT. Some of these ideas and solutions were only available because we had the right mix of staff in the room together, and some of them there'd been ongoing issues for a number of years, and we managed to resolve it just by getting the right people in the room. And we've had really positive staff engagement throughout the RPIW, and then afterwards during the remeasures, supporting all the new changes and ideas, and all the staff have really worked with us to try and implement it. The barriers, we are coming in to now increase pressures and more days of 400 attendances, so we just need to continually revisit it and see what we can do to remove some of the planned activity from reception and really focus on the unplanned and how we can continue to book patients in a timely manner and stream them to the appropriate areas for their care. So that's it from us. Now we've got no more report out, but we will continue to feed back to VSST. So thank you.
Well done, Anthony. And it's great to see the progress that you're making. It's still surprising to see how many children are coming to St James's. So good to see the media campaign that you've got planned. And I guess you guys can see that actually, although this week's been hard work, there's all that hard work that follows for at least another 90 days. So now it's ED to report out again. This time it's the 30-day report out, and this is from your RPIW about cubicle management, and Jane Pilkington is here to report out. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a recap about what we did in the emergency department here at the LGI. So we started off this RPIW 2 week off with a focus on cubicle utilisation. For what we termed as our major patients, we looked at a group of patients that was specifically in one group, and then looking at the lack of free cubicle space and an awareness more so of who we had in cubicles, where we had the space, to try and reduce time of looking around the department. And this was a concern that was highlighted from the team. So this is why we decided to look at that. It was a lot of a team decision. So we focused on reducing waste in the clinicians looking around for empty cubicles. They wanted to know where they needed to take their patients there and then. If not, already be in these rooms, ready to see, and turnover was quicker. So that's what our first aim was. We also looked at, they said that they had to keep coming in and out of cubicles looking for equipment. What they wanted in that cubicle wasn't there. So whether we didn't have it or it was there, but it was just located in another area. So that, therefore, reducing time, but also stopping that breaking continuity of the clinicians with the patient and some of that kind of bond that they made with the patients. Sorry, as well as blue team coordinator, so that they were from the clinician point of view, but from the blue team coordinator. So blue team is our main area in the ED where the nurses work from. So they run that area, so they know or should know where patients are in that department at any one time. So that's a huge safety aspect to this as well. So we were finding that they didn't know where the cubicles were free, they didn't know where the patients were because we had systems that we weren't updating. So it was important for us that people knew where patients were. So this is our target process report. So looking at the progress report, the first one that we looked at was the staff walking distance. So people were walking a lot around the department, and this was just made worse by not knowing where cubicle spaces were. So if we could reduce the walk in the steps that the staff did, we could increase, and the patient turnover would be quicker. So the clinicians were walking around a lot, and we knew that verbally that they were feeding that back to us, and the blue team coordinator not so much, because even though we focused on it this time, we did encourage previously people to just stay where they were so that somebody knew who they had to go to. So as you can see, there was a great reduction in the walking distance of the clinicians. They found it easier, they found it better, they were in one space. A lot, because I'll talk about it a little bit later on, but we actually kind of made some cubicles where we had equipment that clinicians would need in one cubicle so that they didn't have to come out. So we kind of tested a few cubicles to kind of prove that theory, really. The blue team coordinator did decrease, not as much as the clinicians, but they did. It's a small reduction. And there are some things that we think may have impacted on that. Halfway through doing this, we've changed a little bit of how the department functions. So we've had to split our nursing staff a little bit further than we did before, which just actually goes to prove that if we've got the right staff and the right numbers in the right place, this does work. So that's a huge thing that come out of it, and it's kind of an extra proof that does work. So we looked at the lead time as well. And the initial baseline was 1 hour 27, and that looks like a massive reduction to 35 minutes, which is fantastic for the patients. It's difficult, isn't it, because we get all kinds of different patients that are attending the department. So what them patients were, how much time they actually needed was difficult, but we did see a decrease in the time, that patients were needing to be in cubicles. So we looked at the quality measures down at the number 5 there. The first quality was patient notes missing. Clinicians would go into the box, they weren't finding the patient notes, they were looking around the department, increasing time all the time. So what we did as well, we gave the blue team coordinator the control over where the clinicians picked up their patient card and who was to be seen next. So the cards were in there, they had control over that, and it reduced the missing notes. So that proved that as well. And the patient's not at the location that is stated on Symphony, so it all ties in with that wasted steps around the department. So we were given a whiteboard for the blue team coordinator. They had a map of the department on, they knew where patients were, and it also matched with Symphony as well. If anybody's used Symphony, it's just an overlook of the department. So they matched as well. And we did kind of spot checks about was Symphony updated, did it match the whiteboard, and then the coordinator had more control over where the patients were. Okay, so this is just a couple of the things that have made a huge difference, and it's things that we looked at the Kaizen event as well, and then and the RPIW. So we recognise, and as I was speaking about before, that there was the lack of equipment in rooms, and we were given a go-ahead from Steve Bush to order equipment, which was a massive thing, really. We proved that it did work, and he backed us up on that. So that from the sponsor, that was a really positive point. So in each cubicle now, you can see that there's trolleys in the cubicles, and they're wipeable as well, so they're good for us as nurses to kind of keep them clean and everything. And then there's going to be some linen sheets in the bottom. So these are fairly new; they've only come this week, so we're stocking them. So it'll stop the nurses and the medical staff or the clinicians coming in and out of the cubicles looking for things. And a big thing for the clinicians, the ophthalmoscopes. We've been waiting for a while, but they've now arrived. They're in place, and they're there. And it's there because before we had a couple of wheelie ones, and now you can just. They go all around the department, kind of in and out of areas. So it's, these are a fantastic investment to stop that coming in and out and breaking that with the patient. So that's what we hope for, and it's in place now. So that's great. So we also talked about. Looks a bit strange, doesn't it? But we also talked about having a quick turnover room, so that was another thing. Even for patients that didn't need to stay in rooms, for patients that just needed quick things doing, maybe a quick ECG, and that, I don't know if you noticed it on the other slide, that was one of the things that we looked at as well, that patients were waiting a long time for one of the nursing staff to go in after the clinician had seen. But what we've done is encourage people to move people out of cubicles, so that we can move the next patients in, yet we have a cubicle that's free all the time for very quick things, maybe taking cannulas out, quick blood tests, an ECG, discharging them, telling people results. So they're not to stay in there, they're just in and out, and it's quick, and people know not to leave people in there. But what we found was we'd put signs on the doors. They weren't very big, they weren't very clear, they weren't in your face, if you like. So we've decided to go rainbow and cover the door, so it's very visual, and it makes you think. And these are some of the ideas that we've got back. So this has been given the okay to do. Everything's fine, so we're just in the process of choosing the design now, and we're going to get that into place. So that'll be something for next time, and we'll probably have a picture of the proper door, hopefully at 60-day report out. And that room is completely set up as well with all equipment, so you shouldn't have to come out of that room either. So, our newspaper. So the first one was the Blue Team Coordinator, and their unawareness of the availability of what cubicles were free and what was coming up. And we did actually show improvement in the metrics 1, 2 and 6 as well. The whiteboard is in place. We just need to keep on top of that. All staff need to liaise with Blue Team, and that's an ongoing thing because of the turnover of staff we have through the department. New staff come in, the doctor turnover. That's for us all to kind of like push forward and completely, and that's why we moved the Blue Team box, so you can't get to see a patient without having to communicate with the coordinator. We did create some SOPs for Blue Team Coordinator, so we know that is it works, and it's a hands-off approach. Having the staff to back that up, because sometimes what we have found within that, so it's not completely 100% sorted, is that if you've got a reduction in the nursing staff, you can't have somebody stood at that point. They've got to be doing IVs, they've got to be checking things with patients. We're back up to establishment very shortly, so that should help us kind of sort that out, and that we're definitely trying to drive that coordinator hands-off approach. It does work, we know it does. Patients waiting in the room for tests, so we aim to improve that with metric 7. So what we did there was update the SOP for the cubicle usage, so even patients that don't need to go into this fast turnover room, they don't need to be in the cubicle, You've often find that sometimes it's the easiest thing to just leave them there, but that's a clinician, it's working with us, updating, but move your patients out if they don't need to be in there to get the next ones in. We did implement the smart cubicle, which I showed you before, so hopefully that'll be up and running for the next time, and not fit to sit stickers, so that it gives you that visual for the patient. When the doctors are picking up cards and when the nurses are reviewing them, they don't actually need to stay in a room, and it just prompts you to think. Conditions change, so it doesn't mean that that stands all the way through, but it does prompt you to think. So barriers and key learnings. So we've, as Anthony said in his last talk, we've seen some huge attendances through the ED, and a 6% increase in attendances in October from last year. And some days of 400 plus is a huge amount. So that's more patients trying to get through our cubicles at one time. And I think it's just gone to reiterate how important this work is that we're doing. The more we get through, the more we have to be really savvy with the cubicle use in the department and what we're doing and where we know where our patients are. So we're doing that. So there was some changes to our internal flow, and that kind of made us think about things. So we've split the assessment areas, so splitting the workforce a little bit. So we're still working on that. That's work in progress. More nurses, as I've just said, will hopefully back that up, and that should be fine. But what we also find was, so we split the areas, which made us think about how we use our spaces, but the sicker patients were getting seen quicker, and the quick turnaround patients were getting discharged quicker. So we were splitting that work. So resources in the right place helps us achieve what we have set out and increases the patient experience. So that's what I've just said, that kind of like ties in with that. So what do we aim for our 60-day review? So we very much of the same, to reiterate, to communicate, and to maybe have a few more team members. Yeah, would be a good thing. It's not always been easy. We had some difficult days, but I think we've proven that if we can keep at it and keep on it, that it does work. Thank you.
Well done, Jane, and thank you. And we know actually that both our EDs have been under tremendous pressure, and then that pressure transmits throughout the main hospitals, because there are more patients to come into hospital, so everybody's been extremely busy. But this improvement work has helped us to keep that flow going and to improve the experience of the patient. So we've had 3 excellent report outs, and it's really good to see the momentum after the RPIWs. So now it's the chance for questions, either for our cardiac surgical team or for Jane or Anthony. So anybody got any questions? Claire?
I'm interested in the interactions with the DGHs from the cardiac piece of work. How well they've engaged with you, how you were able to describe the work that you were trying to undertake, and have they, how have they taken it on board really?
Well, I suppose at the very start of the project, we were quite clear as to what the scope was for the project. That was looking purely at the time period between the referral being sent on the referrer and then being picked up by the cardiac surgeon. I think it's fair to say there were a lot of issues outside of that scope. Most of the changes that we proposed over the phone when I chatted to each of the sisters or charge nurses on the cardiology wards of CCUs and Bradford Royal Infirmary, Airedale and Coaldale, most of the changes are very receptive to. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think if there are any other particular issues. I remember feeding back to our pre-patch meetings, and one of the recurring themes over the course of the week has been about how very small changes can have a very big impact. And I think that having talked to the staff at the peripheral hospitals, I think that's almost amplified when there's that geographical distance. And the one thing that they were actually most pleased by was just a simple thing like getting a response of receipt of the referral once it had been sent.
So it's not just disappeared.
Yeah, because just to say yes, it's been received, or yes, it's been received, but I vetted it, and I don't think it's completed to a full enough extent that the consultant surgeon will be able to make a decision. I put myself in my shoes as having worked as a junior doctor and referred patients for specialists to kind of review or to take on. It is quite disconcerting when you just send that fax or you send that email, and you just, it's almost a bit of a leap of faith. You kind of, well, I hope that it's kind of being sorted, but that was the single biggest, I think, thing. And also with the advice form that we've attached to the referral form, they're really receptive to that, because that's another one of the big issues, that they feel that there's additional tests on top of the echo and the angiogram that they wouldn't have thought about. It kind of means that we're stopping it from going to the consultant surgeon and getting bounced back and saying we don't have the pulmonary function tests or vascular review that we need to be able to make decisions. So,
Okay, thanks. Joe, I think Pankaj, you were...
One of the commonest causes of anxiety amongst the district hospitals after they've made the initial referral is not getting an answer in good time. This is quite stressful, not only for the patient but also for the cardiologist, because the patient will each day ask you what's happened to the referral. I think the best thing we could do, if one good thing that could come out of all this, is immediate information communicated to the cardiologist in the district hospital, who would then communicate it to the patient. And some of us go to the MDTs in the peripheral hospitals, and we will upgrade them directly about what is happening in this RTM.
And I'm not sure your electronic referral system, is it just something that we designed ourselves?
It's a case of it's just sent via email. It's a electronic form sent via email.
Because I know that neurosurgery are just trialling something called Patient Pass. You probably know about it.
It is something that we are looking into for future purposes. We kind of sort of thought if we get the process right initially, then when we implement that, it'll be, more smooth.
I don't know whether or not you know, but there's frequently the chief operating officers of other DGH organisations contact me as the Leeds chief operating officer about individual referrals that have gone to cardiac, gone to neuro, or whatever, because of what they feel is a delay. There are many often cases those referrals haven't filtered through in the best way. So I'm really encouraged to hear about what you're describing here and seriously thinking about how we can extend that across the wide capacity.
We had one of the Patient Pass implementers join us and give us a 15-minute sort of lowdown on what it can offer, and that's gone on to our work to come, perhaps from BSST, a little bit beyond the scope of this week, but certainly it had a lot of positive reception across this group, and we know it works very well for other specialties, so maybe that's the next significant change.
I don't think we have heard an RPIW report out that hasn't talked about a form and hasn't talked about the form being inadequately completed. So we're clearly a nation of inadequate completers. And that's, I think when you think about you try to order something online and it won't let you get past the box, we have to get better at that, don't we? Because it wastes everybody's time to... Of course, unless you just put a little X in the box, because the form thinks you put something in. But it's really important that this message, that if we're going to expect a response, we need to give the right sort of information. But as you said, I was thinking, Pankaj, all those MDT clinics that you can go out to and reinforce the messages. Really good. Yeah. Amy, from your point of view, how many schedulers are there?
It's just me.
Just you.
Gillian, my colleague, fills in when I'm obviously on annual leave. But yeah, just me.
Wow. So
it's an easy team agreement when it.
So I noticed that Pankaj said the majority of consultants have agreed. There aren't that many. When are we going to get unanimous agreement?
Hopefully very soon.
Right.
To qualify, we've got 5 out of 6, and we've asked 5 out of 6, so it's not. We just need to get to 6. So, but it wouldn't be fair to say all at this point.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. Simon, exec sponsor.
Well, indeed, I just want to reflect, really fantastic week the team have had, and there's some of the improvements you described. And you think, oh, it's so simple, but it's so impactful and wonderful, and the great collaborative work that you've done. For me, I reflected yesterday, for me, the information booklets and then finding out I can have an operation perhaps 24 or 36 hours, but when you're waiting for, heart surgery, that is just massive. I don't think just by itself. So again, congratulations.
And is it? Did you say that before the RPIW, the patients waiting for acute surgery wouldn't have received the booklet?
Yeah, so we sort of had a chat to all the cardiac wards. This booklet is something that's given to our elective patients, but our acute patients, it's not something that we've really put into practice previously. So we sort of thought that, me as the scheduler, I can go see the patient, give them this information, have a little chat, introduce myself and explain that a surgeon will come and have a chat with them, but just that initial communication will maybe cut out a little bit of that anxiety.
Amy was concerned we might make her redundant by removing all the work she has to do basic referrals, but we've talked about, that's a value add step as opposed to a waste that she's chasing. So good to see that she's still got plenty to do.
And encouraging the patient to think about what questions they want to ask and write it down. But encouraging that communication, I think, is really fantastic.
Charlie, what was it like for you being the outside eyes?
Enlightening, I think. I've had a fantastic week seeing what these guys do. I think in NHS improvement, sometimes we can forget what's going on out there. So it's been a really wonderful experience, and the team's been great, and I feel like I've really learned a lot. Such simple things can make such a difference, and it's been great to be a part of that, I think.
Yeah. And how was it having somebody from outside coming in?
Really insightful, yeah. She's been an absolute massive help.
Thank you.
But different perspectives make all that difference.
Yeah, I think that we've all felt that, it's not often you can get all these people in a room to talk to each other, everyone who's involved in that process, and the fact that you can all sit down. We did so many versions of that form, didn't we?
Version 7 was the last.
Because the way you looked at it was not the same way you looked at it. So yeah, just everyone's different perspectives has been golden.
Yeah, good, thank you. Any questions for A&E? Jenny?
Yeah, Anthony, I was interested. How are you going to measure the value of those 40 questions?
Good question. So from the lead time, it's the lead time and the queuing of patients, I suppose. So we know now on average it's 5 minutes to book a patient in. So if we can reduce that by removing some of the questions, then on the days where we have 30 patients attending in 1 hour, then obviously the maths is we need to be doing it in 2 minutes so that there's not a queue. So we'll measure it by the reduction in length of time and then the number of patients waiting, but on a different day, not on Wednesday.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, so the patient's experience in that check-in. I can always remember you saying after the first piece of work that we got to ask them what it was they were there who want us to help them with. So later on in that question, we're going to be able to ask patients the value of that process.
Yeah, so the initial 17 questions, I think 5 or 6 of them are for registration, so they only apply to new patients. And then the next set of questions are around confirming it's the right patient in front of you. So there's always going to be a bit of making sure we've got the right patient in front of us before we can go into what have you come with today. But it would be good if we can to put that question sooner, because I think when you start in reception and you say to a patient hello, they start telling you straight away, so they're eager to tell you straight away what's wrong with them, so we should maybe just move that question.
Yeah, and I thought the work was brilliant, the colouring as well.
Yeah. Still got
Phil, you're the exec sponsor, do you want to say?
Yes, I mean it's fantastic, and I think that one of the real pluses actually was, if you remember with this value stream, we had the Kaizen event, which I think was a real springboard actually, and what I reflect on is I think the RPIW2 almost worked a lot better because there'd been that kind of dry run bit at kind of looking at it, and it's something really to think about, I think, because
It really helped us,
it really,
actually. Yeah.
and it really engaged the team, I think.
We were almost
Yeah.
a few steps forward
Yeah.
on what we were doing. We weren't starting from fresh, we kind of springboarded a few steps forward, so it really was, we already had kind of a focus.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I think has been great for the team is that despite all the pressures, actually those changes have really got embedded in daily work now.
Yeah.
So they actually have become that daily management that we're trying to find, even with the increase in work. And I guess what's hard is because the measure, the 4 hours is such a high level, you know, you wonder when we'll actually get to those, but those small incremental changes, if our clinicians are moving around 50% less, then it must have an impact on how we deliver patient care.
Yeah.
So I
Did
think
wonder reading that as well. If you hadn't have done what you've done, that's what you don't know.
It's not worth thinking about.
I think about those things.
I don't know, we've got Bridget and Robin here as well. Do you want to say anything about?
No, I think the other thing, we've got another challenge in it by changing the assessment halfway through the process. So by giving them another challenge on top to say we also need a rapid assessment. And they rose to that challenge as well. And you know, we did it the first time and got it a bit wrong, and we've done it again. And we've done a PDSA cycle, and I think it's working a lot better. And it's helping with that cubicle management, so it's having a positive effect rather than the first time we tried it was a negative effect. But the team have been amazing. They've just risen to the challenge. You know, we chuck something at them. We need a rapid assessment. We need tomorrow, and they've done it. It's really good.
I think no, I was going to say, I think, you know, some of the things we look at the measures about EC, I was talking to Claire about ECS, and obviously, you know, that's one measure we look at all the time in ED, but one of the things we're saying about the quality measures that aren't always, you know, you can't always measure it as easily, but the fact that, you know, we are seeing poorly patients, the sickest patients quicker, patients who need to be in a cubicle are in a cubicle and they are being managed in that cubicle correctly. We've reduced waste, you know, all those things are, I think, they're palpable in the department that you do see that. It's just, it's not always as easy to measure, but I think sometimes it's important to say it.
Yeah, that's the right thing, that's the right thing. And that focus in the area is the sickest patients that we get through, and we kind of move the ones that we can move through quicker to somewhere else. So the focus and the way we work and change and think about it, you know, has changed for us as well.
And we did challenge Noet, didn't we, to try and find something other than a 12-lead ECG. Is he still working on that one?
Work in progress.
Well, we'll have to liaise with cardiac surgeons and cardiologists and see what they think. Okay, so anybody got any final questions or comments? Sorry, Liz.
I was just going to say, the thing that really struck me was the red and blue colouring of the doors. And I was helping quite a lot of people this week find their way at St James's A&E, because you often find people walking around the corridors, and it did strike me it's actually quite complicated. I wondered if we were doing some shared learning of some colour coding and trying to help some of that, because actually that's a patient experience. Just they get quite upset, don't they, when they get lost, and that just really struck me as dead simple.
Okay, yeah, good.
Sounds easy, but
Right, thank you very much. So the last job is just to give some certificates out to the participants of the RPIW. So Joe,
Thank you.
well done, thank you very much. Charlie, want to take that for your colleague. Pankaj, that's yours. And Amy, well done everybody. Thank you very much. So that's the end of our Friday report out, but the team would be like, could we get a team photo with Amy and with Julie as well as 2 Amy's this week? So, not in front of the desk.
Who's taking? I'll get back.
Africa World.
Cheers.
Thank you.